Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to welcome our next guest on the Tell Me Your Story podcast. She is a true visionary who, together with her husband, has created a unique and sustainable marketplace in Kent, Ohio. She is an entrepreneur, a sustainability advocate, and a lover of all things good and green. Please put your hands together for Jamila Edwards, co-founder of Life's Flower Coffee House and Marketplace. At Life's Flower, Jamila and her team aim to prove that we can make a difference with intentionality and by taking small but meaningful steps towards a more sustainable future. They source their coffee from the wonderful Bent Tree Coffee Roasters, who use fair trade and organically grown beans. They also partner with local farmers to offer fresh and seasonal produce, as well as refill stations for household goods and retail items to make sustainable swaps easy and affordable. Jamila and her husband's personal sustainability journey is messy and real, just like life itself, and they share all their ups and downs, tips and tricks on their blog, The Devoted Babe App. And if that wasn't impressive enough, they also won the pitch night competition at Bounce Innovation Hub's Mortar program, taking home a prize of $3,000 for their business. So get ready to be inspired and motivated by the amazing Jamila Edwards as she tells us her story and shares her insights on sustainability, entrepreneurship, and creating a better world for all of us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening to the podcast. Tell Me Your Story. This is your host, Chris Baker. And, well, we're about to jump into this with Jamila Edwards. She's on to tell her story. I just want to say it's truly an honor and a privilege just to have you on to tell your story.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
It's lovely. Here we are in the month of March. And, we were just talking about before we started. But how are you guys feeling about this snow? If you're from Ohio, I should say.
Yeah. Then it's snowing outside. And it's more than just flurries. It's like sticking to the ground. It's like a lot of snow. The kids were excited about it. They love snow. I did not want to get out of bed this morning when it's like cold and snowy. I just want to be like cuddled up in the bed. But, we're still moving and grooving.
I feel the same way too. I think about that. Like when I first got up this morning, I don't know. I think the kid in me kind of woke up and was like, "Oh, it's a snow day. Sleep it in."
Exactly. But with, here in Ohio, it has to be a lot of snow to get a snow day. So everyone still got up and went to school and work and everything.
I don't know. See, back in our days, it was kind of like we had to flush the ice cubes down the toilet, wear the pajamas inside out, just to get blessed that snow day. I feel like nowadays it's just like you guys get a little bit of snow, and it's like, okay, you guys take the day off.
Yeah. Well, I think that the school districts have a certain amount of snow days allotted for the year. And if you don't reach it, then they're able to like give out more. So this year, because we didn't have as much snow as usual, they probably had some like snow days stacked that they could hand out.
Well,
But not today, unfortunately.
I'm thinking to myself too, is like with technology and everything, and virtual learning. So, do they actually have snow days, or do they have to do like homework?
My kids,
Practice online.
it's an actual snow day. Like they don't get work when they have a snow day. They don't have assignments that they have to complete or anything like that. It's like a free day. At least that's for my kids, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works anymore because I remember like a few years ago that they were doing that. It was like virtual learning. You had to do, even if you were blessed with a snow day, you still had to like in classroom stuff going on. You had to do stuff online, but
probably depends on the district or if it's a charter. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into this. I want to talk a little bit about your business. What inspired you and your husband to, start the Life's Flower Coffee House and Marketplace? What happened there? How did it begin?
Yeah, so we both had been working in the coffee industry for years and had a passion about that. But I took a break from working to have more kids. And that's when I kind of realized, like, looking at the values that we held for our family, we valued the environment, we valued being outdoors. We spent a lot of time in the metro parks, but the way that we were living our life in our home didn't really reflect that because we were producing so much waste in our home. And I wanted our values that we cared about as a family to be reflected in the way that we lived every day. So that's when we went on a journey of being more sustainable at home and just learning about going zero waste. I went like on a deep dive on podcasts and researching about what it meant to live sustainably and to be zero waste. We started a community. I didn't start the community garden, but we joined a community garden with Let's Grow Akron. They're a nonprofit organization here focused on food justice in Akron. And we started growing our own food. We started composting. And I just realized how difficult it was to keep up with the lifestyle, having young kids and a busy family. My husband, Eric, worked full time. And what kind of held us back was the convenience factor, I guess I would say. Like the things that people are used to, modern conveniences, being able to, if it's a busy night or you work late, being able to have paper plates, plastic silverware, and things like that, or going out to eat or ordering food in. Um, Even paper towels and paper napkins and things like that. It's here for our convenience to make things easier with the fast-paced environment that we live in, like the culture that we live in here in America. So it was kind of like very overwhelming for me to to give all of that up. Um, and while we were trying to figure that out, the pandemic hit and it made it like extremely, like it was already difficult to shop, grocery shopping and for your household items low waste. Hmm.
So I want to kind of butt in a little bit. Just tell me like a little bit like what it was like when you first started off, when you first started getting into this lifestyle. What was
Yeah.
the adjustments like, especially with kids?
Oh my gosh. I remember one of the first things for me was grocery shopping. Like, I was that person, especially with young kids. I already didn't like going to the grocery store with the kids. Like, it already was something um, that is a huge, I don't want to say inconvenience, but it can be overwhelming having your kids in the grocery store. Right. And then I realized that everything that we bought it was either wrapped in plastic, in a plastic container, even the produce is wrapped in plastic. And I was like, man, how are we going to avoid this? And it took a lot of research. I was like, okay, we have Acme. If you live in the Akron area, Acme Fresh Market, they have a bulk section where you can go for certain things like granola, nuts. Even the one near us, they had peanut butter that you can go. It had like a little churn and you can squeeze out the peanut butter, but you have to use their containers. So it really wasn't plastic free. Um, you have mustard seed. They have a bulk section as well, but you also have to use their containers there. Um, so I would go from store to store to store, trying my best to be as low waste and asking questions to the staff members, like, can I bring my own jar? The answer was no, for this reason or that reason. Yeah. So it was kind of discouraging and difficult. So then I was like, okay, we're going to focus on a different area. And we switched to cloth diapering, which was a, a difficult process. We have Facebook Marketplace. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found someone that was selling diapers. We went and got them. It did not work out. It was like not the kind that worked for us. Like, I don't know. You have to find the style. There's so many different styles of cloth diapers. You have to figure out what works for you and your child. So when we finally figured that out, it was a lot of laundry. Like I was already overwhelmed with laundry, period. But then adding in like cloth diapers too, and then trying to do cloth instead of paper towels and cloth instead of napkins. When you have kids, like things are spilled constantly throughout the day that you're cleaning up. Um, so I was looking around at our home and I was just overwhelmed. I was overstimulated. I deal with mental health. I battle with mental health issues. So I get anxious if I'm overstimulated in my home. So I was like, there has to be another way of doing this that's easier. And that's when I kind of got into minimalism because I thought everything we bring into our home, I have to manage it. And all of a sudden I was like, we just have too much stuff. Like I shouldn't have to reorganize one space 50 million times.
No.
Why does it take me so long to clean one room aside from the kids? But just realizing we had a lot of stuff. And I wanted to start paring down because I thought it would help me manage our home better if we had less stuff to manage.
And I just really just thinking about that though. I mean, how many of us really think when you go to a grocery store not to use plastic, and how much plastic is actually in the stores? And that,
It's a lot.
like you said, you have anxiety and stuff, and just being stressed out and having kids. So I can
Mhm.
only imagine as you're going through you're changing this progress and everything. It's like you're probably overthinking like mad because you're like,
Yeah.
how am I gonna do this? Because everything that when you really think about it, for the whoever's watching, listening right now, think about it. When you go to a grocery store, when you're trying to be eco-friendly,
Mhm.
it's hard because
It's
even when you're picking up vegetables and stuff, what are you picking it up with? Plastic
mhm.
bags.
Yeah.
And then as you're going into the aisles to get like, canned goods, boom, there's
Mhm.
there it is again. It's like
Yeah.
so for you to really come over this and really just transform yourself, your lifestyle and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
just tell me more. I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, at first I was excited about it, and then it started to feel almost impossible to do because of the nuance of everything. And the more information I learned, the more difficult and complicated it seemed to be. And the online community was not nice either. So it was like if you're not doing it perfectly, you're being shot down for every little thing if it's not done perfectly. That's how it felt at the time. It was 2019. And then I got pregnant again, and I was really sick this pregnancy. And the pandemic hit, and everything was shut down. So I kind of thought, okay, I want to do this, but maybe let's just take a break because we're in survival mode, just like everyone else in the country was in survival mode. And it was scary. Like, if you go out to eat, normally you would use the silverware that's there. But now it seemed like because of the germ factor and not really understanding coronavirus, you know, more things were prepackaged that probably wouldn't have been prepackaged prior to the pandemic. And it just made it seem impossible, really, to continue at that time. So I just kind of like took a break. We downsized into an apartment. And that was kind of the time where I was like, okay, let's just focus on minimizing everything and getting rid of the things that we don't need.
I just want to like add in there too, though. Thanks to thank you, Lord, for being with you, for
Oh yeah.
to heal you during that time period. Because you said you got very sick and you were very ill, and you said almost didn't make it through your pregnancy. But you have a healthy child and you're healthy here. I just want to say thank you, Lord. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm so thankful. Eric, my husband, was really supportive through the whole thing. He was working full time, and I wasn't able to stand up for long periods of time. So, washing dishes, cooking from scratch, anything like that, it was kind of like I just had to say no to all of that um, to just make it through the pregnancy. Yeah.
So here you are, you're trying to make this new change in life and just make a healthier planet, healthier you.
Hmm.
And then bam, COVID hits.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were all kind of like focusing on survival during that point, I would say. And then after things kind of started to reopen again, um, that's when we bought our first home and we moved. And I was like, okay, I want to refocus on living this lifestyle, but I want to figure out how to make living sustainably sustainable for our family. How is this something that we can continue to do all the time? And it seemed like the biggest barrier for us was convenience. That's what it always boiled down to, was how can we find a way to make it convenient which was like not happening here in Akron. And at the same time, we really wanted to, I mean, we're passionate about coffee. We had wanted to open a coffee shop, but the amount of waste in the food industry, like I had heard of zero waste coffee shops popping up across the country. So I was like, let's just see what it would take for us to have a zero waste concept to try to make it more convenient for people to live this lifestyle. Like, how can we create a business around making living sustainable, convenient, more affordable, more accessible to people because it starts to feel impossible. And in other places, you know, you have a zero waste shop online. I follow podcasters and YouTubers, and they don't have large, busy families with young kids,
Nope.
or they live somewhere where the infrastructure is there. They can shop zero waste grocery stores near them. If you live in New York or maybe California or Seattle, you have access to that. But here we just didn't have it. So we wanted to create that here.
So once you started doing it, well, I was just thinking too, like zero waste. When I worked
Mhm.
at this place, like when I worked in foods, they went through a lot of
Yeah,
food waste, a lot of food waste. I mean, talk about a whole like trash barrel just full of like eggs, sausage,
yeah,
all that stuff, and then we would take it out to this big old dumpster, and then it would be, and have to pick it up. We have to have two people lift this big old barrel of wasted food. That you think to yourself like, man, I wish we could have did more with this food. I wish we could have,
yeah.
gave this away. I wish we could have, sent it out into the world because I mean, there's enough food in this barrel that could have fed like a community of people.
Mhm.
And then when you dumped it inside and you seen how much more food was inside this big old dumpster,
Mhm.
it made me start really thinking about it, especially now as talk more about it. It's like
Yeah.
then
Food waste is like a huge problem in this country. And not just, I mean, if you think about your restaurants, the food waste that comes out of restaurants, you think of the food waste that comes out of the grocery stores, food that's being thrown away, produce that's being thrown away, or food that might be shelf stable but past its expiration date. But also in our homes, like all of the food that we throw away in our home as well. And I think what people don't realize is that it doesn't decompose in the landfill. Because so for me, for the longest time, I'm like, it's food, like it'll decompose. Even if you put it in the trash, it'll decompose. But it doesn't have the proper environment in the landfill to be able to decompose properly. So it's a huge problem.
well, I was thinking too that them seagulls must have been really happy when they seen that food barrel, that dumpster coming in. Them flies, woo, they were all about it. They're like, hey, here we go. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to seeing this one get dumped.
I would say composting was probably the first thing that we tackled the second go around, was just learning how to compost our food scraps in our home, and for our business figuring out how are we going to compost. And we ended up partnering with Let's Grow Akron. They have a community compost collaboration program where you can collect your food scraps. You can sign up as subscription based on their website, and they have drop off locations where you'll get like a 5 gallon bin. You fill it up. When it's full, you drop it off, which is really great because if you're not ready to build your own compost bin in the back of your yard, or you don't have space for that, it's nice to be able to have access to someone else processing your food scraps for you.
Mm.
And when we started doing that, I mean, it cut down on our trash considerably, just setting aside our food scraps alone.
I was thinking too, would you say you were using like eating like smaller portions or
No, we don't eat smaller portions. We eat a lot. I think we eat a lot in our family. Um, but what I'll do is I cook more from scratch now. So that's one of the things that going low waste I've had to learn is how to cook from scratch because it helps you cut down on your packaging. So whenever I'm prepping a meal or cooking a meal, the food scraps left over from cutting up the peppers, cutting up carrots, onions and whatever you have left over, that's what goes into the compost bin. Or sometimes, because if it's been cooked, some things cannot go with that compost. So meat and dairy doesn't go in the compost. If you're composting at home, like your own, then maybe you can experiment with that, but it attracts rodents and
Yeah. Yeah.
animals and stuff. So we try not to add that in. But cooked rice, if the kids have a plate of food and they don't eat all of their rice, I'll put the rice in the compost, or oatmeal or grits, beans, cooked food that doesn't have dairy or meat, I'll add it in. But we generally eat about the same amount of food. I just try to be good about using up our leftovers so they don't go to waste.
So really, you had to change your whole eating habits as well. I mean, you had
Yeah.
to watch what you were eating, what you were consuming. Now you had to change up everything. So it's not just around you, you're watching what your intake is now. You're changing it out a lot, and then you gotta
Yeah.
let your body adjust to that as well, because your body's like, whoa, 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 what's this?
Yeah. Like, what's going on? That was hard because for me, it was a learning curve, learning how to cook from scratch. First was in its own thing a learning curve when I was used to buying, things that were either already made or partially made for you. Like going from learning to make mashed potatoes from scratch and then the kids having to adjust to the taste difference of the food too. So they're like, "Oh, okay, this tastes different than what I'm used to. The texture is different than what I'm used to. Everything's different." And that was hard, but it's worth it. I think taking it one day at a time and one thing at a time is what I would suggest too. Is it can feel overwhelming if you're trying to do all the different things at the same time, but just focus on one aspect. So for me, the first step was learning how to cook from scratch. And then the next step was, okay, how can I be a little bit more package free? And even that is hard right now. It's easier when you're going to the farmers market.
So my question is too, is like now you're cooking from scratch and you're making it all yourself. Are you listening to like a YouTuber, podcast, something, and you're getting like ideas? How does this all work out? Then on top of that, my second question would be kids. It's
Yeah.
easier for us to say, yeah, I'm going to adjust and change this to this lifestyle, but as having kids, that had to be more of an adjustment because now you got to tell them like, here, try this. It's good for you.
Yeah. um So what I like to do, I enjoy eating internationally. And my grandmother, she immigrated here from Barbados. So I first started because I wanted to eat more Caribbean food and African food. So I dedicated myself to learning to make one Caribbean dish a week. And I was like, and I just started with that. And then I was like, you know what? I really like Asian food. Like, I love Asian food. So I was like, I'm going to learn how to make one Japanese or Korean meal a week. And one, my kids' pasta is a staple. So I was like, okay, I look at my week. When I do my meal plan, I make a menu for the week. I have one Afro Caribbean dish or African dish, one Asian inspired dish, one Mediterranean style dish, one pasta dish. And then I scroll Pinterest too and try to like find something that everyone will kind of like. And I build out my grocery list from there and see how much of this can I prep and make from scratch.
I mean,
Yeah.
you sound like my wife with the Pinterest. Nobody wants to admit it, but I want to say Pinterest is a blessing in disguise, man. You need ideas, your wife is pretty sure she's probably been on there. Gift
Yeah.
ideas, it's all there. Pinterest. Sponsor the
I yeah,
podcast.
I love Pinterest. I love Pinterest. And with the kids, I try to like talk to them about it. Like they hear me listening to the podcast in the car and I play documentaries for them too. And they understand what it is that I'm trying to do. And I talk to them about our health too. And I'm like, listen, I look and read the ingredients labels. We are cutting out, I told them this was a process. At first I was like, we're cutting out artificial flavorings and dyes out of our food. And they were
Okay.
like, what does that mean? And I'd be like, I had to explain it to them. It's easier for the young, they just eat what they're given, right? But the older ones, they are accustomed to, their snacks and stuff. So I had to explain it to them, and we took baby steps. Like we went from eating the fruit snacks that had the dyes and artificial flavorings to the ones that didn't. And then when it was time to take the next step, I was like, hey, we're not eating any food that has natural flavorings in it either. And then we had to cut back from there. And I was like, we're not buying food that's individually packaged. So granola bars come individually wrapped, fruit snacks come individually wrapped, yogurt cups. I was like, we're not buying that anymore. And so we just went step by step, and I explained to them along the way, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it.
It was probably like the 4th of July over there, man. They were crying their eyes out. Like, what?
My 8-year-old had a moment. He's like, we're not buying fruit snacks anymore. And I was like, no. You'll be better for it. You'll feel better.
And that's I mean, thinking about it, it's like, yeah, it's a healthier lifestyle for sure. And then overall, I mean, I could only imagine how you and your husband feel overall. Just you're making a difference in the environment. You're making
Yeah.
a healthier planet for your kids in the future, and possibly their kids in the future. You're
Mhm.
setting an example for your kids.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how we try to look at it. Like we're taking it one step at a time. It's learning for us, but knowing that we're setting the foundation for our kids in our home. But then with our business, we're helping set a foundation for our neighbors and our neighborhood and our city to be able to live sustainably too. Because I'm learning that there's a lot of people who are interested in living this way, but they don't have access. It's not accessible. And I feel like you shouldn't have to be rich and privileged to live sustainably. But that's just how our system is set up right now. So it's going to take for us to find a way to bridge that gap and to educate and make it more accessible to the average person.
So tell me a little bit more, like what it was like once you conquered it at home, once you started getting things the way it should be going, started rolling the ball, and then you started talking to your friends and stuff outside about your lifestyle changes. How was that?
Yeah, it was hard. Like I have friends that when they come over, like their kid will eat a banana and then she's like, where do you want me to put this? And I was like, thank you for asking. And it goes in the compost bin, because she knows it doesn't go in the trash, right? So it's just like educating, but also letting people know and letting my friends know that I'm not perfect in this. Like if you come to my house, we do have trash. Like it's not like we're completely zero waste. We're not perfect. You know, it's a step by step process, and we're just trying to do our best. But I'm also asking a lot of questions. Like I have friends that want to go to the farmers market. I want to go to the farmers market, but can't make it on those days, or it's too overwhelming. So then it's like, okay, what would be easier for you? Would you like it if somebody delivered the produce to you from the farmers market? Would that work for you? Or what are challenges that you have? Or just answering questions that my friends might have about why we're choosing to live this life and the benefits that not only they can get, but our community can get as well.
Okay. Yeah, I could totally respect that without a doubt. And especially, I mean, just embracing your friends and letting them know, like, hey, this is, what I'm doing. And I imagine, is it harder for you, like, do you get invited to go out with your friends? They say, let's go out to, somewhere, to eat. Is it harder for you and your husband to eat there, knowing that, there is what's going on there?
Yeah. No, I think that we're still in the stage where we understand that the infrastructure isn't in place for us to be able to live this lifestyle to that extreme. If I'm not going out, it's not because of the waste involved, it's because I probably don't have childcare. Like, I understand that when we love to go to the movies for date night. And I am not that person going in with a reusable cup, like, can you put my soda in here? Like, I'll just take what they have and what they offer. And I'm okay with that because I know that it's imperfect. And I've been studying health code too. And I know that a lot of places are literally not able to by law. So I'm okay with that. I'm not going to not enjoy myself and not enjoy going out just because I'm trying to live this way.
But at the same time, you and your husband are probably, inside mentally, you're thinking to yourselves like, we are making a difference in this world. When you see like stuff being wasted, stuff, something on the streets or something getting tossed, doesn't really affect you. But inside, I think deep down in the soul part, you feel good. You know that you're making a difference.
Yeah. I think that's what helps. Like the other day, he takes the trash bin out on the curb and he came in and was like, "Hey, we have less trash going out every week than we did 2 months ago."
We're doing
And
something right.
yeah, I'm like, "Okay, we're doing something right. That's good." And, for my kids to ask questions like, "Oh, is this good for you?" And, "Oh, cool. The other day, I made leftover oatmeal muffins from the oatmeal we didn't eat at breakfast. And our 8-year-old was like, "This is so good." And we didn't waste food. And I was like, "Yes, like you care, you're paying attention and you're noticing." And those are the little things I hold on to because I know I'm not living this life perfectly. And I know, you know, we still have a long way to go. So I just try to count the little wins.
Respect that. So, as you and your husband started getting out and started to advertise and let people know more about your idea of the coffee house and marketplace, how did that come about? How did you get that out to the community?
Yeah, so at first, we actually went through a program called Mortar at Bounce Innovation Hub. It's an entrepreneurship accelerator program. And I went in there with the idea for our business, and they're the ones that going through the program, we left with a full business. Like we went in with the idea, we left with a business. And at the end of the program, you pitch your idea to a panel of judges, and we won the pitch night. So that made me feel really good because it felt like, okay, people care about this idea, they care about this concept, and they want to see it here in Akron. And at the time, we had planned to be up and running as a pop-up shop selling hot and iced coffee and hot and iced tea in at farmers markets this summer. Last week, I guess has it been last week? We found out from the health department we are not going to be doing that. We have been going back and forth with the health department, but for what it is we're trying to do, they want us to be more in like a coffee trailer or truck type of situation. So right now we're kind of reevaluating our business model. We knew that the long-term goal would be to be in a brick and mortar that included a coffee shop and included a marketplace. And we thought making coffee would be a segue into that. But now I'm thinking we're going to focus on our e-commerce and focus on once a week local delivery and really talking to the community, um, because that's an important aspect of it too. Like you love delivery. Like I use delivery all the time, grocery delivery, food delivery, household delivery, or pickup. And I would love to see that process, which is super convenient for people, made low waste.
So, I mean, really, it kind of sounds like, oh, it's a headache a little bit because you're trying to get everything rolling, rock and rolling, but
Hmm.
then you got to deal with, the health department. They get involved, and then you're like, you think you're doing everything right, and then they're like, no, 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 we got to get this straightened out.
Yeah, it's hard. And I really had to take a hard look at what it was that we were doing and the reason behind it as well. Like part of the reason they want us to be in a trailer is because they want our milks to be refrigerated in an electric mobile refrigeration unit. Whereas in other counties, you can put it in a cooler and keep a temperature log. So, because of the county that we live in, we cannot operate that way. But we could have had shelf stable cream, like you would see in the gas station. But that's not sustainable. That comes in individually wrapped plastic. And I don't even know what it's made out of because it's not real cream. So I didn't feel comfortable with that. So that's the other part of this is every part of our business model has to be in alignment with what it is that we're trying to do. I don't want to cut corners.
So who have you partnered up with to deliver to the community?
Yeah, so right.
We are back from the commercial break. We are beginning to talk about before we were rudely cut off by the network because they needed to do the paid advertisement, whatever. But we were talking about who have well, she delivers to the community. So that's what she's doing. She's running with the health department, all that fun stuff. And if anybody's in the business,
Yeah.
you think you're doing everything right, and then all of a sudden they come in, they're like, "Oh, we got to fix this." But now we are beginning to talk about who they were partnering up with to deliver
Mhm.
to the community.
Yeah, so one of our first partners is Let's Grow Akron. I've mentioned them before. They're a nonprofit organization, and they have an urban farm here in Akron. So coming up in the spring and summer, they're going to have a produce box that you can buy weekly. So we'll have that up on our website. You can order it, and then we will deliver it to you. We're working on figuring out how to make it low waste. But we're also partnered with Bent Tree Coffee Roasters. That's where we get our coffee from. Their coffee is small batch roasted in Kent, Ohio. So we'll be able to deliver bags of coffee. Along with Let's Grow Akron, we get our herbal tea from them that we would have been serving in our coffee shop alongside the coffee. So we'll be able to sell bags of tea that they grow. We're also partnered with the Zero Waste Store, offering household items that are low waste. So, for example, in our kitchen, we have a brush to wash dishes and scrub dishes with that's plastic. I think I got it from like the dollar store, Walmart, or Target, or whatever. So, instead of having a plastic one, you can get one that can compost that's made out of wood and wood and plant fibers that can compost in your backyard, or sponges that can compost that are made out of loofahs instead of made out of plastic. So we'll be offering those on our website as well that we can deliver to you with your order.
Okay. Um, kind of like, so are you guys very new to this? Like, did you guys just have you had experience before, just going door to door, making that pitch deal? What was,
I'm new to this. So I have worked in the industry for years, but I've never been an entrepreneur before. So this is very new to me. um, we're figuring it out as we go, and that's one of the things that I liked about Bounce was it helped us really hone in on our idea, on our concept, and how to make it into a business. So I when it was time for us to pivot, and I was like, oh wow, we're not going to be able to sell hot coffee, like we have to do something else. No, excuse me. We made a business synopsis which helps you build a business plan, and I just went back to that and was like, how can we adjust this for look at our long-term goal, this is our long-term goal, this is what we want to do, how can we pick a different aspect of this long-term goal and focus on that instead, and just like went straight down the line all the questions that were asked about our business, and refocused it basically.
what is the most common asked question about your business?
About our business,
Yeah.
I think people want the most commonly asked question is what is zero waste? Like what is living zero waste? What does it mean? And how do you do it and why should we care? And that's when, getting that question over and over, I was like, okay, we have to have an educational aspect of this, for people to understand the concept and how they can do it in their own home. So that's when we developed our blog, Life's Flower Farm. So I blog on there so you guys can see what I'm doing at home and give tips and tricks for that. And,
Smart, smart.
yeah, try to educate people about what it even means and how to start.
Because I think there's a lot of people out there that they're in the same boat. They want to know how to do it, but they don't know how to do
Mhm.
it. Because like we were saying earlier, it's just like when you really look around you, you kind of see like it's gonna be kind of tough.
Yeah, it's hard, but I think taking it one step at a time. And for me, what I've had to remind myself too is that right now in Akron, Ohio, in Summit County, the infrastructure is not in place. So I need to give myself a certain level of grace and not hold myself to a certain standard and be like, okay, well, I'm literally unable to be at this level. So let's just start here and doing that in our own home. But then as business owners, okay, I'm calling the health department, I'm talking to other businesses, I'm doing the work to figure out how can the infrastructure be put in place, how is this, do we need to have some votes, like do we need to come together as a community to figure how can we change and put that infrastructure in place so that we can live more sustainably, because other states are doing it. So if other states are doing it, then we can do it here.
And now that was going to be my next question. How is your community embracing you guys? Are they on board with it? How many people you got on board with you there? Is it starting to
Mhm.
open up around there in Akron? Is people starting to become more about it, or how's it working out?
Yeah, I think that people are interested and they're curious and they want it. There's another business here called My Eco Shop. She set up in Northside Marketplace. She started off, she sells household items that are handmade, laundry soap, dish soap, hand soap, things that can be refilled that she makes. And before, she just is opening up a refillery so you can come and refill your items yourself. But before that, she delivered them to you kind of milkman style. So it just shows that people are interested. When we talked about the coffee aspect of it, people were like, wow, I never, like, I love coffee. I love going to coffee shops. I would love to go to a place that focuses on sustainability. People are interested in it. It's just about creating an environment for it.
Sorry, I just started thinking about. Could you imagine like the ice cream man get replaced with the coffee man?
That's like, you hear the coffee song going down. I think that people would love that.
Come get your coffee,
Yeah.
coffee, yeah, coffee, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, who needs to get coffee from the kitchen? We just go outside and it's right there. I'll take
Yeah.
my coffee. I don't need to go to Starbucks. It's right there.
Right down the street. That's something I'm not sure if we can operate that way per health code. Like, I think you have to give them notice of where you're supposed to be and your times that you're going to be
Oh, I
there.
mean, I'm sure there's ways you can work that out.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to see. I mean, see these grown people just running out the door, like, I gotta get me some coffee.
Get your coffee.
I gotta get the coffee before work.
But that's why drive-throughs are so huge here. Like, people love to go through the drive-through to get their coffee because it's more convenient than having to walk in, especially with kids and stuff, like having to take all your kids to go inside and wait in line at Starbucks for a cup of coffee, as opposed to just going through the drive-through.
You better write this down so nobody tries to steal your idea. Take the coffee truck away. Like, oh, that's a good idea, Chris. I'm gonna jump right on that. Ready to fight with the health department, man. Good luck
Right.
there. That's all I can say.
Give them a call.
I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this, man. I'm gonna make this happen. Like, all right, as long as you come to my neighborhood first. They're like, all right, we'll make it happen. So I want to kind of step back a little bit. Tell me about your experience, just you and your husband participating in the pitch night competition. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was terrifying. It was scary for me just because I'm not accustomed to public speaking. And it was my first time that I had to really articulate what it was that we wanted to do in front of a whole room of people, including the judges, and it was scary to me. Yeah, it made me very nervous, but I practiced. It was good and the tea was delicious, and I was excited for people to just taste the coffee and taste the tea, and I didn't know how people were going to feel about the concept, but once I got up there and started talking about it, I think people could tell that my passion was there. And my thing was, you were timed. You only had a certain amount of time for your pitch, but you had plenty of time to answer the questions afterwards.
Okay.
So when the panel started asking the questions, that's when I was like, well, this is what I've learned in my own experience at home. This is what I learned working in the industry. And this is how I think those two areas can merge and come together to create something that works.
And like, what better way to say it is like you and your husband, were you guys practicing this beforehand? Like, this is the kind of questions they're gonna ask you. You ready for it, or was it just like off the rip?
Oh, no. No, we didn't know what they were going to ask at all. So it was kind of like, in that sense, it was off script. Like, I didn't know. I mean, I guess their questions came from the initial pitch. So I told the pitch and then they had questions based on what I said. So I didn't know what they were going to ask beforehand.
Okay. So, how do you balance running a business and maintain a sustainable lifestyle?
It's it's a struggle. It's probably one of the biggest hurdles that I'm trying to work through right now because living sustainably has me tied at home most of the time. Like I'm cooking all of our meals from scratch every day, and living this way creates more housework, So I also am working on homeschooling. We took a little break from homeschooling, but we're going back to it this upcoming school year. So we operate out of the house a lot. And my youngest is about to be 2 years old. I'm still breastfeeding. So it's been kind of very difficult for me to figure out how am I going to work and do this. But I just try to take it one week at a time. Some weeks are easier than other weeks. Other weeks I'm like, okay, I'm really focused on home this week because I need to get caught up. Other weeks are I have a deadline that I need to make for our business this week, and I need to focus on this right now. It's kind of like just juggling, just juggling, and trying to get more organized every week. And when I slip off, just hop back on. Like some weeks we eat out a lot, and I'm like, geez, like we created way more trash this week than we did the week before, and that sucks, but I'm going to be better next week and just roll with it and do the best that I can.
Said, like you said, it really comes down to time management. Like you said, you got kids, and then I mean, especially too, what you got homeschool, you're still nursing a 2-year old, and I mean, it's just a lot. I can stress management, all that good stuff taking place there.
Yeah.
Are you always got the phone attached to the hip? How does that work? How do you like unplug yourself? What's going on?
Yeah. So, what I'm trying to do is set boundaries and set systems and routines that work for our family. So, for me, the first time going through before the pandemic, I realized that living minimally and having organization was going to be the foundation that I needed to even attempt to live this lifestyle. So now that we're in a house, that's what I've been focusing on this past year is having each room decluttered, only the things that we need, everything, everything has a home. I want every room to be able to do a speed clean in 10 minutes. Like, I need to be able to speed clean this room in 10 minutes. And if I can't, why not? And how can we make it happen? And we're almost there. Like, we're not quite there, but we're working on it. And then having a planner, trying to be organized with, I have a written planner and online planner and a project management system that I use online to try to keep track of all of our projects because it's a lot of content creation, which has been hard for me. And also rebranding, like the name of our blog recently changed. Now that we're pivoting onto e-commerce, that means our website has to change to be able to accommodate that, and learning what is working in the system already. So, for example, we get our milk from a business called The Modern Milkman. It comes delivered farm fresh to our door in glass, and we put our empties out, and they deliver fresh milk and eggs and cheese and stuff. So when I got the text from them, I was like, oh, it's powered by this system. Let me look that up. Let me look up what's similar to this, and let's figure this out. And then figuring out, okay, Let's Grow Akron, they harvest their produce on this day. So that means we need to deliver on this day. That means that I'm not homeschooling this day. That means our school lessons have to be scheduled accordingly around our business as well. And just trying to organize it that way. So each day has a theme. This day is for this day is for this, and do our best to stay on that rhythm.
Okay, so if anybody was wondering, and like, how do you and your husband, work balance out the workload? You guys, do
Mhm.
you do a certain thing and then he does a certain thing? How does it work?
So he works full time. So he's away from the house most of the day, but he doesn't have to leave until like we have breakfast together and we tag team when he's home. We tag team everything. He's very involved. So while I'm cooking breakfast, because I cook from scratch in the morning, when I'm cooking breakfast, he's working on getting the kids up and dressed and their teeth brushed and all of that stuff. And then we make it out the door together. When he comes home from work, we're tag teaming dinner and cleaning the kitchen. Sometimes he's cleaning the kitchen, sometimes he's putting the kids in bed and I'm cleaning the kitchen, or in the bath and we do bedtime together. So it just kind of depends on the day. But we try to have good communication over where we are mentally and spiritually.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'm going to clean the kitchen tonight because I'm overwhelmed and I can't deal with the kids. We both have those days. So we alternate. Um, but also knowing that this is a season, that's one of the reasons we're going back to homeschool because, excuse me, being on the rhythm of dropping your kids off to school in the morning, picking them up, and after school activities has me feeling really burnt out a bit. In homeschool, we can kind of create our own rhythm and way of doing things. So I think that will help a lot moving forward is being able to create our own schedule.
Now, with homeschool and stuff taking place, how are you adjusting to that? Do you have it
Yeah,
already set in play? What's going on there?
we're moving slow. So we have a almost 2-year old, an almost 4-year old, and an 8-year old. And the 8-year old is in school right now. Um, The two youngers are small enough that I'm not doing structured homeschool learning with them yet. But our 3-year old being turning 4, this is coming into the preschool stage. And that's when I started homeschooling the oldest. So it's kind of like, okay, we got a curriculum that I like. It's a nature study. So it's focused on natural science as the base, and everything else kind of comes out of that they learn through that, and it's seasonal. So I'm like, okay, we're getting ready for the oldest to be out for summer vacation, and that's when I can really set the tone for how we're going to spend the rest of the year. Um, and I have to just sit down once a week, pull up the curriculum on my computer. These are the things that we're going to prioritize for this week in homeschool for each child. I have a folder for the child. Like, okay, this one needs to work on this one needs to work on that, and pull up the week. And this is what we have time for and move from there. But I think what's nice with homeschool is you can fit it to your personality and your child's personality and learning style. Excuse me. It doesn't have to be at home, school at home. It doesn't have to have the structure of what they would experience going to school.
I was just thinking too along with I mean, it's just like you said, it's just all about just gaining the balance, and then like you said, you won't have to. You'll be able to set a routine that you'll be able to work with. I was thinking, hopefully, it's not too stressful because then you got the business plus the kids, and then you got to make sure they're learning, they're getting their homework, all that good stuff. It's like
Yeah.
I could only imagine.
Yeah. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but I try to lean on the Lord in those times and be like, okay, you have called me to this. You're asking me to do this. And also trying to remember, I am not going to do this on my time. I'm going to do this on the Lord's time and be obedient to that timeline. And that's also hard to be like, okay, I'm just going to give it up to you. I'm going to do this on your timeline in the way that you tell me to, instead of trying to hustle and make it happen for myself, because I always burn myself out if I do it that way.
And you said it the best, man. Partnership with the Lord.
Yeah.
Let him control the business. That's all that matters, man. He's in control. He's about to take it to the promised land.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for individuals or, people looking to get into the business to become more sustainable?
Yeah, I would say to visit our blog for tips, but also to remember to have grace with yourself and to take it one step at a time. Just pick one thing that you're going to focus on. And once you get that down, pick the next thing instead of getting bogged down. Like it's a lot of information out there and it can feel like doomsday. And if it feels like doomsday, you're not going to want to do it. So, right. You have to find your why and why you want to do it and hold on to that and then just pick one aspect of your life to change at a time.
What plans do you have for the future of your the flower and coffee house and marketplace?
Yeah, so this summer we plan for our e-commerce shop to be open with 1 day local delivery. Non-perishable items in our shop can be shipped if you're outside of our delivery range. And then we're focusing on getting a coffee truck or trailer so that we can start serving hot coffee and tea and espresso forward drinks and ready to made food.
What role do you think business should play in promoting sustainable and environmental consciousness?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. That is such a good question because I feel like it's on the consumer, but it's also on business, especially when you think of large corporations and the millions of dollars that they're making. I think that our world would change drastically if every single business was responsible for the trash and the waste that they produce. And I truly feel like we should do that. But I think saying that is going to be difficult for small business owners at first because your overhead is a little bit more expensive at first when you're trying to do it low waste. But I think looking at big corporations, it's unexcusable. It's absolutely unexcusable the amount of waste that they produce and they're allowed to produce. Like it really riles me up, but I really think that they should
Roll
be
the
held
clip.
accountable.
Roll the clip real quick. That way the people can see.
Yeah.
Very sick name. But in all seriousness, how do you envision like the future of enterpriseship and small businesses in the coming years?
Yeah, I would love to see a more circular economy, a closed loop economy. And I think that people are realizing it more. And we already are seeing it in other states. We just have not seen it so much in Ohio. But I'm just going to focus on milk, for example, the milkman that comes. They have, we get it delivered to our door in glass. We use the product, wash that glass out, and put it back out. And I think there's a lot of different things that can be kept in containers like that besides milk. So it's really trying to figure out, okay, this works for my home. How can I make it work for our business? And then how can I make it convenient and accessible? And if more businesses were thinking that way, we could get really creative. I see some really creative ideas in the zero waste business sphere online. But what makes it difficult is the infrastructure as far as the laws aren't there, at least here. So we have to kind of work with our local legislation, our legislators, our council people, our mayor, and hold them accountable and say, hey, we want to live more sustainably here in Akron. How can we work on this on a county level? How can we work it on a city level? What do we need to do? How can we make some laws and changes and go from there?
And that's a beautiful way to wrap up the podcast.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for coming on and telling your story and telling us all about your business. And I look forward to seeing and definitely seeing it blossom without a doubt this upcoming summer.
Thank you. I'm excited and I appreciate you having me on here.
Now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, contact you or husband, or just want to know more about the business itself, how can I do that?
Yeah, our website is lifesflowercoffee.com. We have contact information on there. I'm most active on Instagram at Life's Flower Coffee, or our blog is Life's Flower Farm.
All right. Let's wrap this thing up with like some random questions, like three out of the blue questions. The favorite question of all: if you could go anywhere in the world, it's all paid for, all expense taken care of. Your kids are being watched too. If it's just you and your husband, where are you going?
I would go to Barbados. I just really want to see where my grandmother grew up. I want to visit the parish that she was baptized in, and I have never been there, so I would love to do that.
Right. Second question. First question one, that's pretty awesome. Second question. If you could go forward in time or backward in time, which way are you going?
That's a hard one. I think I would go forward in time because I spent a lot of my years studying history. So I would like to just have a peek into the future and see like how the work that we're doing is affecting further generations. Hopefully in a good way.
Yeah, that's how I would say it too. Like, let's see how it's going. Let's see how it's
Mhm.
doing. That way I can go back and make adjustments if I have to.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Ask me a question.
Ask you a question. Oh. I'm trying to think of a good one that's not gonna have a long follow answer, I guess. What's your favorite part of this podcast? Not this episode, but of doing this podcast, of hosting it.
What I love most about doing this podcast is just getting to know the individual,
Mhm.
just getting to learn their story and how much we as, just human beings, our souls and everything, just all about us. I mean, this is kind of going to get deep a little bit.
Yeah.
But just knowing that we're all we're on that same path. We're all looking to succeed in life and do good to the world. Most of us.
Yeah.
I want to say all of us, but most of us. In a way, and just be able to connect to individuals and just hear their stories and know that somebody out here, I'm gaining from their knowledge. I'm learning from what you just told me, how I can make a difference in the world. And hearing other people say the same stories, hearing their stories and how I'm growing from it. I'm learning from it my own self. I'm gaining that wisdom.
Yeah.
That way I can continue to what I was taught and what they told me, I can pass it along to others as well.
Yeah.
And the cool thing too is what I like about the podcast outside of myself is for whoever's watching and listening right now, you're getting the what most people would have to pay for. That
Yeah.
experience, that knowledge. Just being able to learn firsthand by, whoever's telling the story. Like you're hearing firsthand right now, today, the start of a business, growing a, a friendly business, a green friendly business to make a difference in this world and how awesome and special that is alone. But to see it
Yeah.
before it takes place, and then like I said, once I see it blossom, man, I'm gonna be like awestruck. And whoever's watching this right now, I hope you feel the same way. Especially if you live in the Akron area with it. You see it
Mhm.
taking part in your community. And then not only that, but seeing that seed that's being planted in your community and being grown into others. That's just watching it grow. And then on top of that, like we said with the future question, say somebody in your bloodline, so your great grandkids, want to know about you in the future. Kind of like
Mhm.
ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Look you up sometime, Google, somebody in the family, or maybe you'll be connected to it in a way. And they'll be able to come across this and be like, yeah, that's what they were about. They started this. They've been passing it down the family tree. Now here we
Yeah.
are doing the same thing, growing the business, keeping it going, and look where it is now, where it all started, where it is now.
It's cool. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your platform. I think it is wonderful to give people the opportunity to listen to stories because listening to the stories of a diverse group of people, there's just so much that you can learn.
Yeah, well said. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And then for the person that's watching or listening right now, I'd like to add too is like she said, it's a platform for all people. It doesn't matter who you are, what your status is, where you're at in life. I
Mhm.
want to hear your story because I believe too often nowadays the reason why I do it also, and what my ultimate goal is to see that person that you walk by, that person you sit next to at work or sitting next to on a bus, or talking to, just get to know that person because really, you never know. I mean, we're kind of getting separate. We're kind of getting distance from each other as a society, and we need to kind of get back to each other and become united instead of divided.
Yeah, that's so true.
And really, I mean, that's why I do this. I want people to not just see a stranger, but see a brother or a sister instead. Look at
Yeah.
them and say, hey, especially if something's going on with them in their world, help them out.
Yeah.
Do something. Do the good, man. Do the inner good that you feel inside yourself. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be nervous what the next person's gonna say to you. And for
Yeah.
the love of God, if you do something good, do not film it and put it on TikTok. You don't need to do that. You don't need the attention. We're struggling with that nowadays. Don't need to do that. Your right hand shouldn't know what your left hand is doing. Yes, I'm preaching the Bible over here. But anyway, so for my next guest, which is you, whoever's watching or listening, yes, this is a platform for you. And like you heard Jamila's story, I want to hear yours next. But other than that, this is Chris. That's Jamila. See you in the future. Peace.
All right.